South Carolina is traveling to Arkansas to take on the Razorbacks, and these are two teams with similar pasts. Both recently hired new head coaches and are in different parts of the rebuilding phase, but rebuilding phases nonetheless. Two very different outcomes for these two teams, though. We're going to get into that and a whole bunch more. First off, want to introduce our first guest, Coach Knox Smith, O-line coach Knox Smith, the man, one of the wildest men I ever played with in my football career. So, Knox, kicking it off to you. What's the main difference you see between these two teams? Why is Arkansas having so much success with Pittman and, South Carolina is trailing a little bit with Shane Beamer?
Honestly, Shane Beamer is just having a hard time with his quarterback play. Spencer Rattler, they thought they could bring him in from Oklahoma. Obviously a hugely talented talent. He came in to South Carolina and was trying to bring some juice to that program. They had a lot of hype. Their defense was great, but they just had to try to find a way to stop turning the ball over and run the ball better. They have been able to do that so far. Against Georgia State, Spencer Rattler he was 23 for 37, 227 with 2 picks. That is just unacceptable. The offensive line played horribly. They let 3 sacks happen with 6 QB hurries. It felt like Spencer Rattler was running around the whole game.
I agree.
And they only ran for 79 yards over the course of the entire game. So they have a lot of things to shore up offensively for sure.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the offensive line, Knox. That offensive line, they're playing in Georgia State. Georgia State should not be competing with South Carolina in any way, shape, or form. And it just looked like it was an even matched game. And that's, a little scary to say if I'm a South Carolina fan, because you're going to play an Arkansas team where me and Aiden watched film before we started recording, and, Arkansas was doing a really good job with dialing up pressure on the Cincinnati quarterback, and Cincinnati's miles ahead of South Carolina in my opinion. So, if I'm South Carolina and I'm struggling to protect Spencer Rattler against Georgia State, I'm about to shit my pants if I'm about to play Arkansas. Now, South Carolina, you also mentioned about the rushing game, only 79 yards, I think that's what you said, and they only, had 2.5 yards per rush. Now,
yeah.
That's going to have to be a point of emphasis that South Carolina is going to have to really work on if they want to win this game, because, like you said, Spencer Rattler's running for his life. He didn't look good at all. He has the lowest QBR in the SEC. But if Spencer Rattler comes out and plays like he did against Georgia State against this Arkansas team, it's going to be a long game for South Carolina.
Yeah. One of the main things about Spencer Rattler that when I watch, I see as a giant red flag is even when he's not getting pressure, he scrambles when his first read isn't open. And that's just skittishness. Both of y'all talked about how y'all felt like he was running around the whole game. And a lot of that was just him doing that himself. He's got to be able to look to receiver number 2, look to the check down, or just even throw it out and, take a no play rather than scrambling around and trying to turn something into nothing. That's a big red flag for me if I'm a South Carolina fan. And then on the other hand, they can't abandon the run game if it doesn't work. Now, I know the offensive line is skeptical, but you're going to have to try and keep the ball out of this Arkansas team hands because, they got a dominant offense. And if you want a chance, you're going to have to be able to control the clock and keep them from getting any momentum, and getting into the game.
Arkansas, who is absolutely going to try to hold the ball and try to just run the ball down South Carolina's throat. They even last year they led the SEC in rushing with almost 3,000 yards rushing. KJ Jefferson is looking like Cam Newton out there. Just in this past game against Cincinnati, Raheem Sanders had 20 carries, 117 yards, and 5.8 yards per carry. KJ Jefferson, 18 for 62 and a touchdown. This Arkansas offensive line with the culture change brought by Sam Pittman has completely flipped this program around. Yeah. Don't get it twisted. KJ Jefferson is a great thrower of the ball as well, very calm, collected. He threw for 18 for 26, 223, and 3 touchdowns. They have the ability for the big play with Trey Knox, who had a great game receiving, not so much in blocking, but he had a great game receiving. And Jaden Hasselwood from Oklahoma has come along and brought a lot of explosiveness to this offense. And South Carolina is really just going to have to rely on their 2 5-stars, Zach Pickens and Jordan Birch, to try to maybe get some pressure. But we didn't really see them put too much pressure on Georgia State. They played well against Georgia State, but they weren't pressuring the quarterback nearly as much as they should have been with the amount of talent they have. I just can't see any way South Carolina is going to be able to stop Arkansas in this game.
Yeah, talking about one thing I love that you said. We talk about it on this channel all the time. in my opinion, offensive line coaches and defensive coordinators have an easier time transitioning into head coaching jobs as far as college football goes. For that one thing you just said about Sam Pittman, the culture. Arkansas went from being a nobody to being a dominant run game school that O-linemen and running backs and, physical players want to go play for. What he's been able to do and instill that culture so fast, we haven't been able to see that much from college coaches throughout the years, so I'm really impressed to see that from him. But also talking about Trey Knox and Jadon Hazelwood, those are two guys that are definitely going to have to step up if this Arkansas team wants to take that step to the next level. Trey Knox is a receiver. They're trying to form into a tight end, so that might be why his run blocking is a little bit questionable. But there's no doubt in the passing game, he's a playmaker. Jadon Hazelwood, of course, we know him from Georgia high school football. The man was a beast. I said this in another video. I think the reason he wasn't successful at Oklahoma is because he's one of those guys that has to be a number one receiver. You got to get him the ball 9, 10, 11, 12 times a game. But what Pittman's been able to do with guys like Trey Knox and Jadon Hazelwood, like you said, really come and find a way to get him the ball, find a way to get your good players on the field. That's really telling of the kind of guy and the kind of coach Pittman's going to be. But that's Arkansas's offense right there. Knox, you kind of touched on South Carolina's defense a little bit towards the end of your shit. So, Drew, pitching it to you, South Carolina's defense, what are the main keys to victory that you see that this defense is going to have to do?
The linebackers are going to have to do a better job. I mean, I was watching a little bit of the South Carolina-Georgia State film. The linebackers were not doing a good job of filling gaps, and that's where you see a lot of the gashes up the middle that Georgia State had a lot of success on. And Raheem Sanders, 20 carries, 117 yards. He might have a career day in this game. I mean, if the linebackers come out and the defense comes out and they don't pursue the football well, they don't fill in gaps, Raheem Sanders is going to run all over them. And KJ Jefferson might just be able to take a back seat in this game, and you might not see a whole lot of him. You're going to see him run the ball a lot. And Georgia State did have a lot of success with quarterback runs, so I expect to see a lot of that. But I don't know if Arkansas is really going to go through the air a whole lot in this game. I'm sure they're going to take their shots for sure. But I think Arkansas is going to stay relatively on the ground in this game, and I think they could easily rush for over 200 yards and really take control of this game and control the time of possession. And if that's the case, South Carolina is going to have a very tough time because not only are they not going to be able to stop Arkansas, but their offense isn't even going to be on the field a whole lot to even have a chance of scoring points. And, I think that's one of the worst things for a quarterback is if your offense isn't on the field, there's no way you can really get in a rhythm. And if South Carolina gets in a situation where they're down 2 or 3 scores and Arkansas is bringing the pressure, they're starting to mix up their blitz packages, and Spencer Rattler is just going to have a rough day, and he's going to start turning the ball over, and then Arkansas is just going to finish the game by running the ball. And the line for this game is 8.5, and I'm kind of surprised by this. It was 7.5, and then Knox came in and told me it moved to 8.5. We'll get more into that later in the video.
That's a great point, Drew. I love how you brought up the big plays that South Carolina led up against Georgia State. While they didn't run the ball particularly well on a consistent basis, I mean, they broke out and they had 2 40-yard runs in that game. They just got torched in certain situations. Like you said, the linebackers weren't shifting well. They weren't filling gaps. It was horrible. And with Arkansas's running attack being a million times better than Georgia State's, it's going to be horrible. And especially and they also love to do play action. They do a lot of play action with KJ Jefferson himself, actually. He'll run up like he's running a QB lead, and then he pops back and throws it. And with South Carolina having R.J. Roderick out, he's a 5th-year starter, senior for South Carolina. He's like a team leader. And then they're bringing in a backup with a lack of experience at safety and Arkansas's ability to run the ball and create big plays. I just can't, honestly, the 8.5 spread is way too low. I think Arkansas is going to take this game handily. I think they'll win by at least 17 points.
So that's your prediction right there. I guess I'll go ahead and get into mine. I'm kind of in the same, field of thinking as you. This Arkansas team, they should feel disrespected by this 8.5-point spread because this was a great team last year. And this South Carolina team, they did not put on a good showing against Georgia State, offensively especially not. I know we were talking before, and you said one of your big question marks with this Arkansas team was the run defense. And in Cincinnati, they did give up some big-time runs, but a lot of that stuff was off of stunts that the D-line was pulling, or, they caught Arkansas in a blitz. So I'm not necessarily too concerned with the run defense for Arkansas, especially like we were talking about earlier. South Carolina only averaged 2.5 yards on the ground. And, of course, they got Arkansas has Bumper Pool at linebacker and Drew Sanders, of course. So they're stacked there. I think they're going to have a great game. Yeah, just Arkansas's offense is going to run the ball down the throat. Like you said, KJ Jefferson as a play-action threat, he's an absolute monster. And I think that he's really taken on the leadership role this year and that he is primed to be one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC this year. He looks 10 times more comfortable, 10 times more mature as a player. In interviews, I'm listening to him. He's hyping up teammates, sounds way better than he did last year. he's embracing the role as QB1 this year, and I think that's imperative if a team wants to take the next step, especially if you're in a conference like SEC. So for all those reasons, I'm hammering Arkansas.
Yeah, I'm going the same route as y'all. There's just no way I can pick South Carolina in this game with any kind of confidence at all. And then just the 8.5 point line, I mean, that's just so low. And like you said, Aiden, Arkansas should feel a little bit disrespected from this, beating a really good Cincinnati team. And, just the season that Arkansas had last year, competing with Alabama and, having some other big-time wins. I mean, this is a really good Arkansas team with a lot of pieces coming back, and they added a lot of talent from the transfer portal. So I don't see how any way that people can look at this game and see, or this season, and see that Arkansas has dropped off in any way. You talked about culture as well. I mean, Arkansas is just light years ahead of South Carolina. South Carolina, I think, still doesn't have much of an identity. They still have a young coach, and Shane Beamer is still trying to find his way. And right now, South Carolina is just not really poised to have a good season. I think they have way too many question marks, and even more now so after watching that Georgia State game. I thought South Carolina was going to be a little bit better on the offensive line. I thought their quarterback play would be a little bit better, but that obviously isn't the case. I'm not saying that they can't improve as the season goes along, but they're not going to improve from that Georgia State game to this Arkansas game. I mean, you're traveling to Arkansas. The fans are engaged. Arkansas is winning games. It's going to be a packed, sold-out game again. It's going to be a tough place to play. And I just don't see any way South Carolina is going to be able to prepare for this game and make the changes they need in 1 week. So with that being said, I'm taking Arkansas in the 8.5. And even if this game was 14 points in Arkansas' favor, I still think I would take Arkansas. That's just such a weird line. There's something the bettors know that we don't.
Yeah, the number one thing about that South Carolina team in the Georgia State game, they had no energy. It looked like they just thought they were going to walk out and beat the shit out of Georgia State. And Georgia State was fighting inside the front seven on both sides of the ball. Were getting it done, and they were coming to playing scrappy. South Carolina came out with low energy, thinking that they were going to roll over them, and they had to fight. They got punched in the mouth, and they did claw back eventually. But like we were talking about throughout the whole video, it was an absolutely terrible offensive performance from this South Carolina team. And I think a lot of South Carolina fans thought that whenever Spencer Rattler came in, that he was just going to be like the saving grace for this program and, cover up all the issues that this team had. But, we're seeing it now. I saw it at Oklahoma. This Spencer Rattler guy is not it. His tendencies, these are the type of tendencies you don't shake as a quarterback, and I haven't seen any development from him over the last couple of years. So I'm not bullish on this South Carolina team at all.
You're not going to block 2 punts against Arkansas. This is a well-coached group. They're not going to let up some absurd special teams blunders like that. You're not going to get 2 free touchdowns off them. They're going to beat South Carolina up. They're going to throw the ball over the top. They're going to sack Spencer Rattler. South Carolina has absolutely no chance in this game. And if any commenters want to challenge me on that, I would love to. And if I eat my words, I eat my words. But Arkansas is going to absolutely bludgeon South Carolina. Final score prediction, I'm going to say maybe 45-13.
45-13. I can definitely see a scenario where it can get out of hand like that. There's just really no telling. I mean, yeah, there's only been 1 game played for both of these teams. It's hard to really get enough of a sample, and I say this all the time, to really gauge where teams are in week 2. But, if I went into a coma now and on Sunday I woke up and someone told me that the final score of this game is 45-13, I would just know you're talking about Arkansas. I mean, I'd definitely see a scenario Arkansas win this game by over 20 points. Final score prediction for me, I'm probably going to have to go with a 38-10. I just don't see any way South Carolina gets any momentum and finds a way to put the ball in the end zone. But yeah, that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for this video. Knox, we really do appreciate you joining us. And if you guys enjoyed this video, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share the video. And feel free to leave your opinions down below. What you think is going to happen in this game. What do you think Arkansas or South Carolina, what do you think their main keys are going to be for winning this game? Just leave us down anything like that, and we'll take a look at them and reply. We'll probably be doing maybe 1 or 2 more preview predictions for this week. I'm not really sure yet how our schedule's looking. Today's Wednesday, so we only have a couple more days to do some preview predictions. But we'll just go with the flow here, and that's going to be it for this video, guys. We'll see you in the next one.